This is
Oh,
Mind Your Job, episode 23. We are talking to Dan from Prescient, a wealth management company, and he's going to talk to us about early in your career, how you should be handling yourself, how to pay back your debt, how to be able to do sort of all the things to grow into the doctor that you want to be as a financially secure human being. Take it away, Sam.
Absolutely. When you're not you, but when somebody is going to dental school, medical school, and they're like, okay, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to do really well. I'm going to provide for myself and my family, and it'll be great, and I'll be make a lot of money. And then they get out of dental school and they look at their loans and they look at their first offer, and they might shed a tear or two. So, Dan, what is the first thing you would say to someone who is in that position? Like, what do they do?
well, first, congrats to whomever is in that position because that means they went through a very long journey of schooling and training to get to where they're at. So it's a huge accomplishment. But I think a lot of times, like, there's always a difference between, say, like income and stability, right? So you get out of school and you have, this offer of a well-paying job, right? But
Right.
at the same time, like, you kind of look at the other side of the table and you have this mountain of student loans you have to take care of. So I think a lot of times, people interchange between high income and what's stable. And I think a good thing is to first of all normalize it. Like that is the norm. You have to look at it a little bit different. Like what you did for the better part of the last decade is a big investment, right?
Yep.
And there's going to be an ROI on that. So really just kind of, getting a lay of the land of, what you have to pay back and kind of all the other expenses as well. So just understanding your cash flow and building a plan around how do we want to tackle it is probably the biggest thing.
Do you suggest to them like how much they should be setting aside to pay loan back? How much should they be putting into their retirement? Like, is there a calculation of how much to for living expenses? All the things. What should they be doing with their sign-on bonus? How should they be managing that money?
Yeah, I mean, it's, like anything with financial planning, as much as we can always run the numbers and find the math answer, I say, everybody wants it to be black and white, but we operate in the gray, right? And so, the answer is different for every single person, which is why, our firm, we take such a personalized approach with everybody, right? Some people might have a different situation, family support, whatever that may be, where it allows them to take their income and aggressively pay down debt. Others just might be starting out. And so, like anything, a strength overused can become a weakness. If all you do is have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You want to build out, a strategy that's going to take care of both ends because, one of the issues is if you pay off your student loans aggressively, you don't have liquidity for other things. And, you could be missing out on opportunity for future savings, practice buy-ins, things like that. Because once you pay that money back, it's there. It's not as if you can never give it back. So it really depends on what each person wants to do and then building out that plan around them.
What do you think about when people first get out of school about like long-term disability? How to do that, how to manage that? Because I know you guys also work in that arena too. Like, I get injured, I'm a dentist, I went to school, I have 500,000 in debt, and all of a sudden now I have a neck issue and I can't do the bending or the moving that I wanted to do to be able to do the best dentistry. And I go into my DI account. How do you help people, navigate that? How much do they need? When should they be getting that disability insurance? How much do you think they need? What's the difference between own occupation and other DIs? Give us a little idea about that.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal question. I think the best way to look at that is if, the money stopped tomorrow, how long could you last, right? And for most people that start at school, it's not that long because you haven't had time to save up any money.
Right.
So I think that's a really good way to look at it. Um, you know, Not just particular to dentists, but really any profession, especially when you're very young, your human capital is very high, your financial capital is very low. And so if you think about in the context of a financial plan, like your income is really the engine that makes everything go from debt pay down to offensive strategy of savings up. And if you don't have that, you're kind of lost. So that should really be the first thing that folks look at is covering that income because you, again, you invested so much time, energy, and money into this profession. If that, doesn't come through on the back end because you cannot work, you don't want to miss out. You're almost owed that because of the time and money that you spent already.
Oh,
So
that's a
I'll
good way to
bring
look
you
at it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good way to look at it. If someone is coming out of school and they have a significant amount of debt and they're panicking, there is no norm. I understand that. But how many years does it take someone realistically to pay something off? I mean, you have to look at them in the eye and say, "Look, buddy, it's not going to be in 5 years. So, like, brace yourself. It's going to take some time." I mean, what is the range that you've seen to help calm fears?
Yeah, I mean, I would say kind of on the lower end of the range is a decade. I would say that's on the faster end. And if you think about just other folks that might have invested in law school and medical school, like that's kind of the earlier end. But
Yeah.
anywhere from 10 to 20 or even beyond, and that depends a
Wow.
lot on, various loan programs that people might be in. If there's other types of programs where there can be debt forgiveness or the way that you consolidated. So again, it kind of comes down to what do you want to accomplish? What does your future hold? Like, do you want to remain an employee dentist forever? Well, if that's the case, it's a little bit more stable. Maybe we can, pay things off faster. But if you have other goals, like we need to diversify and create some liquidity. So that would then lead to maybe stretching the payments out further. So it really does depend. But either way, you just want to get a lay of the land. You want to have a plan in place. And then whatever that plan is, start working towards it. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good, right? Start that stacking wins early.
So when you're working with people, how do you hold them accountable? Like you meet with someone, they're a client of yours, you outline their goals and what they want to accomplish and who they want to be, and then they go to a car show and they
Yeah,
spend it all. Like
right.
what do you do to help people stay accountable or understand um, the immediate impact of such big purchases when they're like, "Oh, I'm a doctor now. I can do this. It's okay."
Right, it's really hard because, like, after all that delayed gratification, you want to reward yourself, and I think that's
Right.
always, like, a good, call it behavioral, emotional, let off some steam by doing some of those things, but you never wanna go too far. So, our firm name, Prescient Financial Solutions, the genesis of our name is forward thinking, seeing things before they happen. So, like, when we're, sitting down with somebody that's younger, that's just starting out in their career, it's just getting a lay of the land first and foremost, like, level
Mhm.
setting, where are you right now? And then
Right.
talking through the different various paths that they could go and starting to build that picture, paint that picture of what the future looks like. And then from there, once you have, called that path forward, you deviate because life's messy. Things are going to happen. It's not going to be a
There
straight
is.
line to
Yeah.
here. But I think most people, whether it's dentists or other people, just want to know, like, if I don't follow this path, like, what does that mean? Like, if I buy this car, invest in this practice, buy this house, like, am I screwing myself in the future? And if the answer is no, you're still going to be able to get to where you want to be, but you're, deviating a little bit. That's okay. So it's just letting people know where they are, setting a North Star and knowing that there are ways to get back on the path. But, how do you know that if you don't, understand where you're currently at?
Right. Yeah, I like that. Learning about the U-turns. You can always do a U-turn, go back.
Exactly. You sure can.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think it's really interesting. You you talked about like giving them sort of like a budget, sort of like an idea of what they can spend, what they can do. What happens when you get someone who's already in trouble? My first question. And my second question is everybody hates talking about money, whether they're making it or not making it. How do you get past that hurdle?
I mean, first and foremost, I think it's just being open and empathize with folks and just saying, hey, like everybody starts somewhere, right? Like even the richest person in the world, like, they didn't have all that money on day one, right? So, again, back to like stacking small wins along the way. You gotta take that first step. You gotta get that first win under your belt before you can kind of get there. So just, kind of say like, hey, we're here from you and we want to continue to focus on just positive steps towards wherever it may be. And once you kind of open up to that, and say, hey, we're not here to, be like your parents and scold you. Like, we're not going to nitpick um, what you're spending lattes or going out to brunch on a Saturday. Like
Right.
we're focused on big picture. If you get some of those things right, like the other things will kind of fall in place. So, even
Hmm.
if it's debt payoff or savings, like, get the big things right and then the minutia, as long as it's within some guardrails, like who cares what you spend your money on as long as you're meeting your big goals. So like we're not big on budgeting per se, but we want to make sure they're taking care of the bigger things first.
So the pulling teeth aspect of talking about it, because we're mostly working with
That's
dentists,
a
and it literally
Great
is.
pun, by the way.
favorite turn of phrase.
I mean, I'm trying to because I feel like I talked to so many doctors. Sam and I both
Yeah.
talked to so many doctors, and the apprehension level, they just think it's all going to come down to the working contract that we're going to get signed for them. And they have no idea. Yeah, they have a license to drill barely. They need mentorship. Their growth is just going to start. They're not a mature dentist seeing, you know, 14, 15 patients a day, doing $50,000 a week worth of treatment. They're maybe doing on a really good week, maybe 7,000 or
Yeah, they're still baking.
$8,000.
They're right.
Sure.
They're done.
So, like, how do we get them to like open up, listen, want to talk to you without the pulling teeth aspect? Because we all hate the dentist. And the two things we probably all hate the dentist and we hate talking to the financial advisor. Not because you
It's
guys
a
are bad, because it's scary. Like,
Anxiety
even
inducing.
having money is scary. Knowing how to store your money and knowing, what your money's going to do for you, what your tax consequences are, all that stuff is super scary. So, how do you get past that? Because I ask dentists all the time, how do you get past the fear? Like a patient comes in and they're afraid. How do you get past that? And they're like, I'm really nice. I talk to them in a low voice. I tell them what really needs to happen. What do you guys do? What's the trick?
I mean, I would say it's kind of, even though we are nice people and whatnot, I mean, it's no BS. Like we're not anybody or our firm is, built on trust, but it's really like, we're not going to come in and just, like I said before, be a parent and scold you. We're here to help in whatever capacity that may be. But like any dentist or doctor, like you can't diagnose, you can't help, find a cure unless you like truly get a peek underneath the hood, right? Because otherwise it's malpractice. Same thing goes with a firm like ours, like, skipping ahead to, clients that are more financially stable and maybe closer to the mid to end of their career. We've been blessed where many times we've been referred in and people say, "Oh, I've heard all about you. I'm going to move our portfolio to you, bada bing, bada boom." Like we don't need to go through the whole song and dance. Like how is we as fiduciaries able to properly manage their money, provide tax strategy for all these things if we don't understand what's going on? So as much as it is beneficial for the client to understand like what that long-term plan looks like, it's for us as well as practitioners. And so we tried to, I guess you could say, especially working in the medical field, kind of almost create that parallel to their careers. Be like, you wouldn't drill into somebody's mouth without looking at an X-ray or talking to another doc, right? And also understanding where the patient's at. It's the same thing with the client, except it's, like at the end of the day, like, clients, it's the client's money, it's their financial life. Like, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. You know, we kind of view it as like, hey, this portfolio, this money, your financial plan, that's your ship. You're hiring us as the captain. We might say, let's drive over here. But at the end of the day, if
Mhm.
you say, no, I want to drive here, like, we're not going to stand in the way, but we'll educate you as to why that route isn't that way. But it's just being consultative, and
Right.
telling
Right.
people what it is.
I like your analogy of you wouldn't drill without an X-ray. Do your due diligence and do your
Right.
research and make sure. Like, what's the other one my dad used to say? Oh, measure twice, cut once, right? Like,
Yes.
just make sure
Yeah.
you know what you're doing so
Mm-hmm.
that when you put your plan into action, you know exactly what you're looking at from all sides. Again, like
Yeah.
look at the X-ray. You know exactly what the problem is, and so then now you're going to start drilling versus like, oh, let's just drill and see what we find.
Right.
How do I see you? I'm a doctor. You are like, great. I like what you have to say. How do I find you? How do I see you? How many, what layers do I have to go through to get you? Where do I find something on your website that gives me an idea of how to get, going? How
Yeah.
does, how do we start with that?
I mean, there's multiple ways to find us. Our website is pfs.nm. So we are affiliated with Northwestern Mutual. We're one of the bigger teams in the entire system in the city, part of the private client group. And then I'm also on LinkedIn as well. But our website is the best way to contact us. Has our contact information, and just call us up and
Yeah,
book a
and we'll
meeting.
make if you can send that to us, we'll make sure that Alex puts that on our podcast. We do like a whole blurb on
Sure.
each social media thing.
Yeah.
Um, so it's premature. I'm going to ask you this question. I'm a 40-year-old dentist. I've been out for 12, 13 years. I work with you. I have DI through you. I have a life insurance policy through you. I have a little savings or a little bit of a retirement plan with you. When do I start thinking about doing estate planning with you or in general? And how do I go about that? Like, do you help me find an attorney? Do I find an attorney? Or how do you guys go about that? I always think that's a fascinating thing because
Yeah.
you have no idea how many older doctors we work with on the consulting side of this business that have no will, no
Well,
estate, no trust, no nothing, no nothing. And they know nothing. They have nothing, they know nothing, and they know nothing to have nothing.
and
All
if I could
right.
add, as Sari mentioned earlier, like nobody wants to talk about money. It's
Right.
scary, it's anxiety inducing. You go to estate planning, and
Yeah,
that's a
even worse.
Oh my God, that's the scariest
like
of
like
scary.
you need Valium and then some. Like it's a very scary
Yeah.
because it's real and it's a necessity
Hmm.
and it's there. So how do you talk about that? Yeah, that's a yeah.
I mean, you think about the facets of a financial plan, that's one of the major ones, right? And, I will say, like, it doesn't really become more as important until you start to have, not necessarily assets, but just, other things going on. And by way of that, it's, family, so a spouse or then kids. Or, on a work perspective, let's say you're single, but you have work spouses, i.e., I am now buying in as a partner, or I'm a succession plan, and there's legal contracts, there's operating agreement. I mean, you are married to your business partner, in that sense, right? And, if focusing on the business for a second, if something happens to you, well, there's value there. How are you being bought out? Who does that money go to? And then from your business partner's perspective, do they want to be in business with your spouse if you're married? Or,
Yeah.
if your beneficiary of your business shares as your mom, like that can become their business partner? So I would say, like, once things start to get a little bit more complicated, other than, I have my insurance in place, I just it becomes more common. That's the right time. And the way that we go about doing that is first and foremost, like, explain, like, what are, the few high level bullet points of a good, well rounded estate plan, the levels in which you can go. I mean, you can have a will that's different than a trust, which is more ironclad. If you're buying it as a partner, business structures. Depending on the situation, we have an expansive network of estate planning attorneys. Depending on the situation, we know which estate planning attorney to try to introduce, dentists and other medical professionals too.
Do you guys also do like I know you do life insurance. Are you doing life insurance for some of these buy sell deals?
Absolutely. Yes. And one of the nice things is, again, being in the private client group with Northwestern Mutual, is they have sophisticated planning services. So oftentimes, like, everything we're talking about, especially when you get to that level, involves other professionals, right? We're financial planners. We're not CPAs, even though we know taxes well. We're not estate planning attorneys. We're not drafting up documents. Sometimes, even the cost of, getting in front of those professionals might be prohibitive. But one of the nice things is that because of our affiliation, we have access to what's called a sophisticated planning team at the home office. What that is a group of estate planning attorneys, CPAs, business valuation specialists that they can get you, I would say, 80 to 90% of the way there of saying, what is your situation? What's your case? Here are the documents that you need to effectuate the strategies that we had talked about, right? And let's just say you're further ahead of that. Like, you're already established, you did your estate planning, you have your operating agreement, but you're like, you know what? I don't know if I have done this optimally. We can take all that information, give that to that team. They flow chart it. They do an executive summary just to give everybody the lay of the land. And that's at no cost to the client. That's just because they work with us. And we're able to do that, save them time, money, and give them a better peace of mind. And by the way, there's always something that we discover to say you should look at it this way. And then to your point, Sari, if there's insurance that needs to be put in place, great. Like, but we want to kind of build out the structure and give people the full picture before we like start doing that stuff.
I think that makes sense.
Will you let somebody know, like if someone came to you and said, I'm going to buy a practice, do you think this is a good, financial deal? Can you guys look at the numbers, tell them what you think, give them sort of a brief idea of how it's going to work for them without them having to get lawyer doctors and Indian chiefs in there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably what's more important than just the P&L, is really buried in the operating agreement. What is the language on there, right? Because if operationally, things are a mess or it's not to your favor advantage, like that's usually where the skeletons fall is in those legal agreements. So you can have the best deal on paper, but if something falls apart and it doesn't, the legal documents don't go your way, like your SOL. So, and
Right.
ensuring that you have a second set of eyes on that. Again, the way that we do that is we lean on that team. They'll come back with some points, but at the end of the day, you still would need to go to an attorney to, fix things that are needed, or you can at least use them as leverage marketing chips. So, yeah, that's kind of the way that we would do that.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank you for coming and enlightening us and helping the people who are going to be licensed to fill and drill be able to fill in the parts of business that they don't always get and the information that they don't always get. They need it sooner rather than later.
I
I
agree.
just want to
Yeah.
say one thing new.
Wait, can I say one thing first?
What?
I'm looking behind Dan. Go Badgers.
Right? Yeah. So Bucky,
What else?
Mind your job.
Mind your job.
likewise. Thanks for having me.